I'm Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer brothers of Baltimore Knife and Sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man-at-Arms, Reforged.
With the new movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, we thought this would be a perfect time for us to introduce a new sword. We'll be building the Sword of Gryffindor.
This sword was forged by goblins 1,000 years ago, who are said to be the most skilled craftsmen in the magical world, much like the elves in Middle-earth.
We're going to bring Ferenc back, and he's going to be doing the original carving for the handle. But Matt's going to begin by forging the blade from 1045.
So obviously this is a huge piece of metal, and we're making a pretty small sword. The blade size does vary depending on which character holds it in either the story or the movies, but we're going to go ahead and make the standard size. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off, weld it on the stick, and then start our blade forging.
I know you guys are used to seeing Ilya do all of our blade forging. In this case, it's very nice for just about anybody in the shop to be able to forge out a blade.
Ilya makes working with big stock look a lot easier than it is. Obviously, it was a bit of a struggle, but I got my piece cut off. I'm gonna go ahead and weld a stick onto the little piece we just cut off. That'll make forging a lot easier. And from there, it's just bladesmithing.
Lauren's going to be creating the large cabochons for this sword.
We're going to do lamp work. We're going to take this magic rod and melt it and put it into this mold to make the round beads that we need. And then I'm going to do the same thing in ovals. Once these are finished, they're going to go on the handle of the sword. We're going to set them just like we're going to set the smaller garnets around the edges.
Now, when Radnuk, the Goblin King, first crafted this sword for Godric, he imbued many symbols on the handle, one being the unicorn. We also have the lightning bolts, the griffin for Gryffindor, and the wizard and the wizardry symbol imbued into the handle. Now, we've drawn the artwork out onto these pieces. We've cut out our pieces, we've shaped them. This piece for the handle actually has somewhat of a domed shape, so we've contoured that a little bit. We're going to begin carving that artwork in. It's very intricate work, and we're going to cast one side of these pieces, and then we can make multiples and put them together and assemble the handle.
Now that Matt has a handle on his 1045, he places it in the forge, brings it up to temperature, and then goes to the nasal hammer, and then begins to draw out his sword blade.
So we're using the high-speed hand piece, very small, fine bit. I'm going to move to a more aggressive bit and a more aggressive hand piece to where I can do some of the larger parts of the stock remove on the background. Then we'll go back to this once again and start to work the detailing into the figures. Now, on the handle piece for the Harry Potter sword, the Sword of Gryffindor, we're doing what's called a stippling technique, where we're taking a high-speed hand piece with a ball bit and we're reliefing that background, and it's also giving us that stippling effect at the same time. So when Kerry goes to chase some of these lines, he can go ahead and blend that into the background a little bit easier after we get the castings out of the mold.
Starting at the nasal hammer, first with a hot cut, Matt cuts this sword to length, then he begins to shape the tang. Once he's done that, we'll take a hand hammer and begin shaping the tip.
So we've finished the carving work on the pieces for the Gryffindor sword. We're going to take these and we're going to hand chase these pieces, bring up some of those high reliefs, and then they can go to mold.
So I've just gotten the handle engraving back from Ferenc, and it's beautiful and really fine engraving. So we're about to make a rubber mold out of it. The mold material comes in sheets like this, and then we cut it to the size of our mold frame. Halfway through, when we get to the center level, we end up powdering it and putting markers so that it lines up, and then we put the second half on it. Now that we've got all the layers together and we've got our sandwich, we're going to put it in the vulcanizer. The vulcanizer has a heating element top and bottom, so what it's going to do is raise the temperature to 250 degrees for about 20 minutes, and it will set the rubber and it'll push into all the nooks and crannies of the piece.
Darlings, I love you. So Matt did an okay job at the forging. I would have done a little better. All right, we got the forging of our blade complete. We went ahead and did a little bit of edge beveling up here just to gain some more width. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add some teeth bevels to the rest of the blade. We don't want to diamond grind it. We need to leave a flat so we can add the Gryffindor etching later on when the blade is fully polished.
So to finish out the ends of the Harry Potter guard, we're going to be making these bezels. This bezel section here that comes up to the stone, and the small section here that has the 8 smaller stones, I'm going to make the originals out of wax so that we don't have to make molds. I'm just going to turn a pair of them on the lathe, then they'll go directly into the casting to be made in silver. I've taken a series of different calipers and dividers, marked out the sizes that I need, and that's going to be able to give me a determination of what I want to do on the lathe so that I can transfer that image by hand right to the piece of wax.
Okay, now that the vulcanizer is cooled down, we're ready to reveal the mold. The mold looks great. We have all the detail we want. So now I have to cut a sprue so that the wax has a place to come into the mold. Spray a little mold release on. Sandwich it between the 2 pieces of plexiglass. Put the clamp on it to hold everything nice and tight because it's going to be under pressure when I push the wax in. And that's beautiful.
I'm going to be heat treating the blade now. It's 10:45. Occasionally you'll see us take that into water. I'm going to go into oil because it's a little bit safer and I know it'll be a lot straighter coming out. Now we're going to go to the forge. I had a little difficulty with this small blade in our large forge, but I was able to get the heat the way I wanted it, quenched it in oil, it stayed fairly straight. We'll have to temper it afterwards to make sure it's not fragile, but I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. We have 2 pieces for each of the designs that you saw us carve. They're going to be for both sides of the sword since it appears to be double-sided.
Lauren has to assemble these and fit them onto the blade prior to casting.
So this is the center part of the guard, and this will be the upper part of the guard. And we have laurel leaves that'll also have a garnet set on them that are going to go in between each section. And that will be at the edge of the blade. And these are the pieces Kerry did, and we still have to do the stones that go around them and the laurel design that goes up it as well.
So I'm down to the last 2 polishing grits. I'm gonna do my 120 and my 220. On the 120, I'm gonna move at a slight angle on the edges just so I can see the grit when I move 1 to 220 so it gets all polished out.
Now that the waxes are set with their sprues and placed on a base so that we can pour around them, Lauren sets the flask around the outside, mixes the investment, pours it in, and then we're going to debubble using a vacuum system. When we're casting lower temperature metals like gold or silver, we tend to use an electromelt. Kind of looks like a big coffee maker, but it goes all the way to 2,000 degrees. Lauren's going to pull the flask from a 1,000-degree kiln, place it in the casting machine. I'll take the electromelt over and pour the silver. We'll be using a hot oil bath to take the stress out of this blade. Rick will place it in the oil and hold it there for an hour at 450 degrees. We allow the metal to drop below 1,000 degrees. We then take the entire flask, quench it into water. The water will steam clean off the silver and show us what we have to work with.
It's gorgeous, Kerry.
So anytime you have casting that has detail, through the multiple mold processes and through the casting process, we lose detail and we lose some definition. At the end, you can really bring the quality level up of the entire piece and the detail through chasing. So initially I'm going to go through and I'm going to use a liner and I'm going to brighten up all of the detail that Ferenc laid into this. Then I'm going to take a matting tool, lay out the backgrounds, and chase the surfaces and give them a full 3D effect instead of a 2D with depth. It's the kind of thing where you can do it in a couple of hours, or you could take a month and still be working on the same piece. Now that we have the castings finished and we've started to clean them up, we've done some chasing. We'll come back and finish them out after they're soldered together. These have to be soldered on permanently, gemstones mounted all the way around. We're gonna come back in, we're gonna set garnets and silver mounts on the rest of the piece. And Ferenc is gonna come in and engrave in our lettering. We'll put it all together, polish it, and we'll be done.
We are drawing out the lettering. We're going to do this by hand with a reciprocal engraver. That means it goes in and out, not rotary. This is the same tool that I use for doing stone monument etching, so it's going to give a very fine stippled effect. We are doing Godric Gryffindor's name on this sword. He is the one that commissioned this originally from Ragnarok.
This build was far more difficult than simply pulling a sword out of a sorting hat. In this case, we had to build the blade and pour the silver, mounting all the gemstones. Really pleased with the way it's turned out. It's about 1 kilo of silver. It's a pretty amazing piece. Click here to subscribe, or click here to watch more episodes. Thanks for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next.